Yes, we're all in this now, but our dreams can come true. Sustain our sound, GRCB needs you. All in this now, but our dreams can come true. Sustain our sound, GRCB needs you. Sustain our sound, make it loud. Help us keep up the fight. GRCB, alright. Help us keep up the fight.
Hey everyone, I'm Larz. Thanks for checking this video out. Today we're going to be talking about paradiddles. If you haven't seen my previous video on single and double strokes, I'd suggest maybe checking that out before you continue this video, especially if a paradiddle sounds like this crazy foreign thing you've never heard before, because a lot of what we're going to be talking about today does stem from that previous lesson on single and double strokes. So check that out if you haven't already, but otherwise today all you're going to need once again is a pair of sticks, some kind of surface to hit, either a drum pad or a drum or a book. Today I'm using my snare drum with a shirt covering it to muffle it a little bit. And again, that same positive attitude that you all had last week, because this stuff is going to get a little bit trickier as we go on. It gets a little bit deeper into different kinds of techniques, but you know, it's that same kind of idea of taking it slow and not being too hard on yourself, taking it small steps at a time, little bites, whatever you can handle. And today we're going to be talking about the basic paradiddle form and the basic paradiddle sticking. We'll also get into some inversions, and just like we did last week, we'll talk about some accents to kind of spice up this sticking exercise for you. So let's get right into it. Basically, a paradiddle is a sticking exercise that combines single and double strokes. So just as a quick recap, what we did last week is the single stroke, just right, left, left, right, whatever. Double stroke, right, right, left, 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 right, right. So your paradiddle is combining those into one consecutive sticking practice. So essentially what it is right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. I'm just going to hydrate really quickly. Everyone should hydrate out there as well. That's part of the lesson. So we got right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Now that might be a little much at first, but we're going to take it super slow. And if you've been practicing your singles and doubles, this should be a piece of cake. Another way to think of the paradiddle when you're practicing it and learning it is to actually say paradiddle. So your basic form is always going to be this right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. But a kind of fun, easy way to remember that is if you say the word paradiddle, 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 and you're always just going back and forth. You're going to start with your right hand, and then you're going to do the second one with your left hand. Paradiddle, paradiddle. And if you don't like saying paradiddle, that's totally fine. You could say whatever word you want as long as it's 4 syllables like that. You know, like you could do tapioca, tapioca, or you could do watermelon, watermelon, or you could do Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. Anything you want. If there's any way to make this easier for yourself, I say please do it. Like, I'm all about those simple tricks that kind of like makes my brain remember things easier. So whatever works for you, go ahead and do it. For the sake of today, I'll probably mostly just use paradiddle, paradiddle, because it's kind of like the standard and just to get everybody on the same page. So basically with your sticking, we start again with the right, right, left, right, right. If you're a lefty, you might want to start with the left, left, right, left, left, and then go to the right, right, left, right, right. And if you're counting your beats, each form with starting with one hand is going to last 2 beats. Paradiddle, paradiddle. And then when it hits 3, you'll switch your hand. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, right, 2, 3, 4, if that kind of makes sense. So let's just do that. We'll bring out the trusty metronome again, and let's just play through that a bunch of times to kind of get used to what it feels like to have that combination of single and double strokes. So I'm going to put the metronome at, not that, but I'll put it at 90 BPM. And again, if you don't have a metronome at home, that's totally fine. You can just follow along with this or just count out whatever beats you want to yourself. So we'll start with the right. 3, 4. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Paradiddle, paradiddle, watermelon, watermelon, tapioca, tapioca, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. Keep it going. Paradiddle, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Nice. So I hope that's feeling a little bit more comfortable for you all. I know it's definitely a very kind of freaky, weird kind of sticking pattern to get down. But again, it's just that combination of those single and double strokes. And as many times as you need to just go back to that first video and reference like double stroke, single stroke. And then it's just putting those together in this kind of weird like thing that's called the paradiddle for who knows why. I definitely don't. So if we wanted to do that same speed, 90 BPM, but if we wanted to speed it up so that they're twice as fast, but it's still kind of slow. Paradiddle. Oh, wait, that's totally wrong. What am I doing? I don't even know what I'm trying to do here. I think I got ahead of myself. See, that's the thing with the paradiddles too, is like, I'm teaching this lesson and even I got tripped up. So if you guys get tripped up, it's totally normal. It's totally understandable. Like the paradiddle is this weird, freaky thing that like takes a while for your brain to get used to. And another thing with the paradiddle is like, you know, this isn't necessary to play a drum beat. Like you could go to a drum kit right now and you could bang out a beat and be awesome and know nothing of a paradiddle. Like I played drums for years and years and didn't know what a paradiddle was, and like maybe I was doing them here and there, but I didn't know like the science behind it or like the structure of what made it up. So, you know, just take a minute to really like do it at your own pace, don't beat yourself up, and just take it as it comes to you. So I'm not going to try to do whatever I just did that confused me. So if we're starting with our right hand, let's try starting with our left hand. This is also a really good exercise to work on your weak hand. So sometimes us righties have a really weak left hand because it's not our dominant hand, and lefties, maybe you guys feel that too, like maybe your right hand is really weak or much weaker because it doesn't get that kind of same like dominance as your left hand might. So let's try starting with our left hand, and we'll do it with the tempo here. Whoa, I don't want 390, I just want 90. Okay, 2, 3, left hand. Paradiddle, paradiddle, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. And if you wanted to go consecutively between the two, we're going to do an extra double stroke with the hand, with your not dominant hand before switching. So if that makes sense, we'll do it like this: 2, 3, 4, right, left, right, right, left, right. Now stay left, left, right, left, right, left, right, right, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. So when you do that switch to, when you go from starting with, say, your right hand, and then you do it through right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, and then you want to stay on your left hand, you just do one extra stroke. Left, 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 one, and right, left, right, right, left, right, left, and left, right, left, 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 right, right. There's a lot of lefts and rights, and it's really easy to mix it up in your head and go from being like right, left, right, right to like right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, what? So start slow. If you need to, just don't even start to a beat. Just practice right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right. Just start it as slow as you need to, because this is one of those things where muscle memory really takes over. And once you do it long enough, and once you really practice it, again, that practicing can be like 10 minutes a day, whatever, as long as you're working at it and as long as you're kind of like familiarizing your muscles in your brain with what this thing is, it is going to get more natural. But trust me, I know at the start it's really weird. But I think that you guys will definitely get it, because again, here I am learning this thing when I'm in my 20s, and I don't know how old all of you are, but I just think anyone can do it, regardless of how long you've been playing, regardless of how old you are. And that's what's great about music, is you can learn it whenever you want. So, anywho, once you guys get comfortable with that basic left, right, left, left, that bass, I'm just going to keep playing it throughout this lesson, because I feel like hearing it and seeing it helps to solidify it in your mind. So that's our basic thing. And something else actually cool before I move on to inversions is, say you're doing this, right? And you're like, okay, Larz, like I get it. I can do this paradiddle. If you want to spice it up a little bit, something else you can do is, if you have access to some kind of drum, like if you have a drum with you, or even if you have like a book or a floor, like bring another surface over, like bring another book over, bring another pillow over, or like use one hand on your floor. So for this, I'm going to use the rim of my snare, and then just hit it regularly on the snare, and I'm going to do all my right hands, I'm going to do on the rim. So I'm still doing the same thing, but you kind of like hear it, and you hear how it's different, and how the right hands, it sounds like a beat itself. And then moving forward, when you guys take this paradiddle to your drum set, which we will go over in the future, you'll see how it actually sounds really sick, and it sounds like a beat, even though it's like this weird sticking exercise. So check this out. So let's do it with the metronome again, just because I think it's fun. Ready? And 1, 2, we're going to do the rim. 4. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And if you wanted to do it a little bit faster, it'd be like... See how that sounds cooler? Like, it's not just like... Right? And then we could do the same thing where we start with the left hand, but keep the right hand on the rim or your other book or whatever it is. So we'll do like paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Right? So that's kind of cool, right? It sounds more like something you would use in practice than just a sticking exercise. And that's also the cool thing about drums and percussion, is like you can make it sound any way you want to just by hitting something different. So I definitely encourage y'all to mess around with different sounding. Like I have this like stool over here. Maybe I would do that. Oops. And just see how like different sounds of things, whatever this thing is. Another cool thing is if you have different surfaces, keep the paradiddle going, but change the surface. So I'm going to start on this thing over here. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And I'm not doing anything differently. I'm just switching where my right hand goes. My left hand is always staying right here on my main surface. And again, you could switch that, and you could switch your left hand, or if you want to get really fancy, you could switch it like every other hand or something. You know, the possibilities are endless. So anything that you think of just using this basic paradiddle form, completely go for. So on that note, now that you all have the basic form down, we're going to go somewhere a little different, and we're going to do some paradiddle inversions. And basically what an inversion is when you start from a different sticking point. So we're still going to be doing paradiddle, paradiddle, but it's going to slightly change from each point of paradiddle that we start at. So to make that easier, when I start with the basic one, I go paradiddle, paradiddle. If I want to start from the first inversion, that means I'm going to start from the second sticking point. So if pa is our first sticking point, ra is our second sticking point. But I'm not going to start, usually the ra is the first left hand. I'm going to start the ra as the right hand. So it's like, and then everything follows suit. So, right? So let's take this slow. Basic, paradiddle, paradiddle. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. First inversion is going to be radiddle, pa. Radiddle, pa. Radiddle, pa. So it's inverted. So it's like, you're kind of like the middle of the sandwich. Like you're like, if the pa and the final dull is the two pieces of bread, your ra and your did is your peanut butter and jelly. So right now we're hitting the peanut butter. So we're like radiddle, pa. Radiddle, pa. Right, left, left, right. Right, left, left, right. So it can get a little confusing, and there are more inversions, but we're going to stick to this one right now so you guys really kind of get it. So again, so the basic one, paradiddle, paradiddle. And first inversion, the peanut butter, radiddle, pa, radiddle, pa. And one thing to note with this that kind of makes it easy for me to remember is the diddle is always where you hit the double stroke, at least for these initial, for like the first inversion and like the basic one. The diddle is when you're hitting the double stroke. So right, the basic one, pair, single, single, double, double, single, single, double, single, single, double. And then, the same thing with the first inversion, radiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. So I hope that kind of makes sense as to like what I'm getting at with the inversions. It's basically just like you're inverting your basic pattern. And it's called first inversion because it's the first sticking point, the first place we're going after like the basic home base. So if basic home base is starting on pa, first inversion peanut butter is going to be ra, right? Radiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. And I feel like this is, when you're doing the inversions, is really when it's helpful to speak it out loud and say paradiddle, paradiddle, because it kind of like helps you from getting like super lost. At least it does for me. So that's first inversion, and second inversion is going to be your jelly, where you're starting from did. So paradiddle. So we're gonna start with a double stroke, right? Because that's the diddle. paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And ultimately, yes, you are always just saying paradiddle, but it's where your one is. It's where your starting point is that always changes. And if you play it to a metronome, which we will, and if you have a metronome where your one is highlighted differently than the rest of your beats, such as the one we've been using is, you'll be able to hear it's like when you get back to the, for this one, for example, when you get back to the did, that's when one is going to be instead of where like 3 is or something. So once again, so third inversion, wait a second, second inversion from the jelly, from the did, diddle, paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. So let's just try those 3 in order, no metronome yet, just still like really bare bones. So the basic, starting with your right, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. First inversion, starting from the ra, radiddle, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And I'm trying to accent the what the one is on each one. So like with the first inversion, even though we're saying pa, the ra, it's important to remember that's your one. Radiddle, paradiddle, 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 right? So second inversion, starting from the did, we're going to start with a double stroke on whatever hand you want. I'm starting with my right, again, because I'm a righty. Sorry, there was a spider. Okay. So yes, second inversion, starting with the ra. Starting with the did. Diddle, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. So let's try those 3. I think the last one, the third inversion, is pretty tricky. And I think these inversions so far have already been a lot. So let's just try doing those with the metronomes before we kind of move on. 2, 3. Here's the basic. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. We'll give it a measure, and then we'll start from the ra. 1, 2, 3, 4. Radiddle, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paradiddle, paradiddle, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paradiddle, right? All right, now take a couple measures and we'll get ready for the third inversion, second inversion. Second inversion is the jelly, starting from the did. 1, 2, 3, 4. Diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Double, single, single. 1, 2, 3, 4. Diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para. Ready? And we're going to go back to the basic and do that same thing again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. First inversion, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paradiddle, 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 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paradiddle, paradiddle, para. And now we'll do the second inversion, starting from the did. 2, 3, 4. Diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para, diddle, para. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Diddle, para, diddle, para, did. Nice. Wow, that's great. I bet y'all are doing awesome. I wish I could see you face to face, but there's this screen in between us. Cool. So if you're feeling good with that, let's go over the third and final inversion, the other piece of bread in our paradiddle sandwich, where you start from the dole. So it's going to be dole, paradiddle, paradiddle. So you're starting from the second double stroke. So let's start with our right hand, and then it's going to be single strokes until the double. So dole, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. It's a little weird. Here, let's do it in context with the metronome. So starting from dole, the second double stroke. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Dole, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. So it's a little weird. That one's funky. I am less practiced at that final inversion, I must say. It is weird. It kind of sounds off a little bit, like when you start playing it. But a really amazing practice for everyone to try once you get really comfortable with this is do like we were doing, and you can up your metronome tempo or your foot tapping tempo, whatever you want to do. Start with that regular, start with the basic one, and then you can leave a bar in between each inversion, or you can start with the basic one and then just go straight into the inversions, like without any in between, and just like see how that works with your sticking pattern. And that's a really great practice to become a paradiddle master. So that's pretty much the basics on the paradiddle. And just really quick before we go, similar to what we did last week, was we talked a bit about accents. And what we were doing mostly here was we were accenting the first. Diddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. But accenting is universal, you know, regardless of if you're doing single strokes, double strokes, paradiddles, beats, anything, the accenting principles will always apply in the same way. So it's like, if we're doing the basic, you can accent paradiddle, or you could accent the did. Paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. Or you could accent the pa and the dill. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. You know, you can literally accent it however you want. I think those are some pretty easy ways to start with accenting, you know, like the first of every phrase, the last of every phrase, the first two, paradiddle, 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 whatever you want, and then you can take that over to the inversions as well. Accent different points in the inversions, and then you can do the whole thing with the basics, with the accents, and then the inversions with the accents, and you're going to sound amazing and cool, and you're going to be better than me, and it's going to be awesome. So I think that pretty much does it for our lesson on paradiddles. Again, like and subscribe. like this video, subscribe to the GRCB channel, and again, if you can, throw GRCB a few bucks. They're having a suggested donation going all through this pandemic time and quarantine time. Again, no one is sure when social distancing is going to be lifted. No one is sure when businesses will be able to reopen and events will be able to take place again. And GRCB really wants to continue giving back to everyone and keeping these lessons going, and giving the people in the community what they want and need. So if you have a few bucks, throw it their way. If not, share these videos. Keep on tuning in. So thanks again so much. We'll see you next time.
Because we're all in this now, but our dreams can come true. Sustain ourselves.